hopefully we'll get to, I'll at least get to hear everything that we're doing today. All right, we have 2 books to read yet. You guys have 6 weeks left. I don't know if you know that yet. You have 6 weeks left. And this week we have about 3 days, and next week we have 3 days. Okay? So enjoy your free time now while you have it, because this is the end of it, because I didn't want to give this, I'm serious, for my class it is. Okay? Because we need to get this stuff done, and you'll like what we're doing, but you're gonna have reading homework. Okay, you have had reading homework, but you're gonna have reading homework. We've got at least 2, if not 3 books to read yet, and the reason I'm choosing them is because of the relevance that they have to our world today. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about, and this will make you understand why they're relevant. I'm probably not going to write this stuff down because I have all those photos on my board. I want you to think about the world today, right at this moment, and think about groups of people that are scapegoats. Okay, do you know what that means, to be a scapegoat for things? Okay, I think we talked about this when we studied night. Okay, who right now in our world today could be considered a scapegoat? Who's being blamed for things? Emma first.
I know with the pandemic, a lot of people looked a lot towards like China and the Chinese people, even like people who were in America, nothing to do with the country of China, who were Chinese,
Okay.
were like being blamed or made fun of, things like that.
Is that where you were, what you were thinking too? Okay, let's, were you gonna talk about the same topic? Different, okay, so let's think a little bit beyond that. Okay? Now, is it just Chinese people who are being targeted right now?
Asian Americans in general.
Any Asians in general. So what do you know about, think about where any of these people could be from, because I think we need a little kind of a geography lesson here too. What nationality of Americans are being targeted now besides Chinese Americans?
African Americans.
Japanese, Korean, okay, Vietnamese, okay? How about this? This hits a little bit closer to home. How about Filipino Americans are actually Asian Americans? Okay, so I think of John and Godwin when I think of Filipino Americans. Okay, most of you guys know John and Godwin, and maybe even Fredo. Is that their thing, their brother? Yeah, Godfredo was his name, is his name. Anybody who has a remote Asian blood to them are being targeted right now, okay? Who else is scapegoated for things or seen as a scapegoat? We just women in general are scapegoats for what?
Like with everything that's happening, like with feminism, like, and with rape, like women are being blamed. They're like, you shouldn't have worn that. You shouldn't have got drunk. Like a lot.
For male generated crime against women are the actual, females are the actual scapegoats. A lot of the time, that does happen. Not always, but a lot of the time. Wiley.
Did you hear, I don't know if you did, but there was this Supreme Court case where they ruled the man not guilty because the woman voluntarily got drunk.
In Minnesota, the state legislature passed a law. If a woman beforehand chooses to get drunk and she's raped, it's not a crime.
Was this recent?
That happened over this last weekend.
Did it
And I
really?
saw another court ruling
okay?
that the father, like a woman was
God.
raped and got pregnant, and the father was granted like custody rights to the child.
Where was, this was recently?
I don't remember
But
exactly
you
what
don't
it was, but I
remember where?
saw it very recently, yeah.
I didn't hear this Minnesota thing. So the Minnesota state legislature just passed this into law? Is that what
It
it
was
is?
based on a case that has been going on for like, I don't know how many years, a couple years now. It happened in like 2018 or 2019. And
Okay.
they just finished like closing
for what, perfect example for what we're talking about. Yes, and I'm guessing you're looking it up? Yes? Okay,
Okay, so,
did you find it?
you know, the Supreme Court interprets what the law is now, and not like, things like that, that's their job. And so apparently, that's what the law said, because it has to be,
And
it
this
only
is your
counts as
minute,
rape
so
if
this,
it was involuntary, which is kind of, so like, that's what the law is now, so it's not that those guys don't like that law, it's just that that's how we had to interpret it.
so are,
So-
so was I incorrect in, so is it the Minnesota State Supreme Court that came down with that ruling? Okay, so it wasn't the legislators, it was the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled on that case that had been a case since 2018, okay?
Yeah, but now they're trying to change the law.
So it's a little of both.
I don't know, you could interpret it as that being
If-
voluntary.
No, I
Just
know.
because it says the law legitimately is for some reason. The law is clear that the intoxicant must be administered involuntarily for the victim to be considered mentally incapacitated, because like the whole,
So that's
Like
the
the definition of rape.
technicality.
the person if guilty of rape in the state of Minnesota if the victim is mentally incapacitated, and then that definition of being mentally incapacitated is for some reason
So they're
administered
trying,
involuntarily.
but they're trying to change the law. That's the good thing about all of this. They're trying to change the law.
Like there's like a,
Excellent. Research it more if you so like. So women are scapegoats. Guys, sorry, you're in the minority here. So what you're saying, Reagan, is that women are scapegoats sometimes for men's actions. Okay? Keep going, keep going. Becca had one.
I was gonna say religion.
Okay? Talk about it.
Like I had to do a slideshow on vaccinations, and that's kind of like, oh, it's my religion, so I blame it. Like I can't get my vaccination because that's against my beliefs. So I feel like they kind of just use it as a way to get out of things,
So it's an
or it's to be accepted for like their misbehavior.
okay. So that's, they use their on religious grounds to get out of something.
I think that's definitely true, because you look at like gay marriage and stuff, and you see people like, well, we better make it illegal because it goes against my religion, but that specifically contradicts the separation of church and state. Like, you can't use your Bible to control someone else's life.
Apparently, someone this weekend, I was informed of this, a boy that I was friends with had told one of his friends that the reason that we didn't work out is because I was homophobic and racist and a conservative Trumpy. When the only conversation we had had about that was that I was Catholic. Like, he knew that I was very religious, and so that's where he based all of this information that he was telling people about me.
Oh,
So,
there's-
yes.
There's a term for that, where like, if you believe one thing, people will assume you believe something else. Like,
Yeah, there is a term for that, and I can't
association
tell you
politics,
what.
I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that.
Kind of
It's so
guilt by
dumb.
association, yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate it so much.
Anyway, that was a little off topic, but that's
Speak-
what that reminded me of.
Speaking of court cases, okay, this doesn't have to do with religion, but I heard this, that the Nebraska Supreme Court, so I don't know if this happened on Friday or if it happened late last week, but I heard it on the news today, so it must have happened Friday, that, the Nebraska State Supreme Court overturned a Dixon County court, which I think Dixon County is Sioux City, South Sioux, I'm not positive on that. They overturned a lower court ruling that would not allow a same-sex couple to adopt.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes.
Working in the nursing home, everyone's always watching the news, so I'll be like in and out of
Sure.
rooms, and I'll be like, watching the news.
Yeah, so you caught a bit on that too.
I saw
Yeah,
a post
I
on
caught
that.
a bit on that too. So our state Supreme Court, and again, that could be people's, you don't wanna say religion causes people to have certain beliefs about same-sex marriage and things like that, but religion might be a scapegoat for that. Wiley, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was gonna say Joe, like the president, not just Joe Biden in general, but just the president. in
Like,
general.
yeah, the office.
The office of the presidency is blamed for such and such and such and such and such and such. Speaking of that, and I don't know that this has anything to do with the presidency or not, but is it another news item, the big container ship that's dragged into the
It's
Suez
such a bad
Canal?
situation, but there, like, a lot of people are making like jokes about it online.
Well,
It's so hilarious.
I have no
I
idea.
have no idea.
Well, this is something that's totally different than that. And this is a person that I know that I'm friends with on Facebook, otherwise it wouldn't have popped up on my Facebook. But this person made a comment that said, this was not an accident.
What are we talking about?
So there's some conspiracy theory
Evergreen
apparently.
leadership in the Suez Canal.
That it's like stuck, and people are.
So it's this,
I'm just
it's
gonna
this
say one thing
giant
about that.
container ship.
It's 4
You
football
guys
fields
already
long.
hate the government.
It's like taller than the
so
Eiffel Tower, I heard.
Yes, yes.
It's, so the Suez Canal is like the Panama Canal, but in Egypt. It was going through there or whatever, and then someone turned it, so then it got like wedged.
Well, it was a storm that came up. It was a storm that came up that wedged it in.
So it wedged in, and now they can't get it unstuck.
And there's
Wait,
all of
so it's just stuck.
Wait,
There's
so
all
what's
of
on that ship that would make people think that that was not on accident? What's on that ship?
10% of global commerce.
Oh, so that's a thing. Where's,
Well, and now.
wait, where's that, what countries are those going to, do you know?
Everywhere. Pretty
Yeah,
everywhere.
and so now people have to go like all the. I've been seeing
We
a
just
lot of
shouldn't do
memes
that,
about like
isn't that just?
There's pirates
rejecting.
down there. There's pirates down there.
Yes, and there are pirates there too.
Yeah. Don't, I
It's-
wouldn't
it's
put the
terrible.
government
It's
above
mean.
anything.
Yeah, reject
They
one.
do so,
Embrace tradition.
So speaking of, you guys said the
No,
office,
there's-
office of the presidency, but would you say the feds, the
Yeah.
government
Yeah, I
is
feel
a
like
scapegoat for a
The
lot of
government,
things?
especially with like the coronavirus stuff, like everyone hated Dr. Fauci. I felt so bad for him. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy, but everyone blamed everything on him just because he was like a spokesperson. Okay, but the Saturday Night Live skits are so funny.
They usually portray him in a pretty positive light though. They
He's
make, they,
make fun of him because he's like kind of a short, timid guy.
he's so cute though. He's
Yeah.
a cute little bit.
It's just because he's the face of everything
Right.
that people yell at him. Like
So
I've seen
who-
so many people be like, I hate Dr. Fauci.
so yes, so Dr. Fauci is the scapegoat
Yeah.
for
yes.
anything,
That's
especially
probably
mask
the best.
related with the
Yes.
coronavirus. You're
I
not
mean, I
here,
feel like
what day?
discrimination is really
I'm not
scapegoat
signing it on
definition,
Monday for
really.
Thursday.
There's
I'm
not
not
reason people are
Casey,
scapegoats, is to
I'm not interrupting a class to sign it.
focus on something else.
Yeah, just wait till class time tomorrow, okay? Thank you. Yes, I'm not interrupting a class to sign a slip for 3 days from now. Other scapegoats, think groups of people, like groups of people that have been targeted over history as scapegoats.
I was gonna say Hispanics for like drug use in the United States and like violence or like specifically gang-related violence.
Okay, Hispanic people?
African Americans,
Four.
also gay violence and hundreds of things. throughout
Okay,
history.
blame it on the black people?
Yeah.
Blame it
Yeah,
on the
like,
black people?
Especially in like history, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say, but like, a crime was, like, we just watched Fried Green Tomatoes in our relationships class, and like,
God, it's been years since, remind me why black people were scapegoated in that?
well,
It's like there was a murder,
Yeah, they
and
were
they
just-
just blamed it on
Mhm.
the slaves because
they were gonna blame it on the.
who else would have done it?
So kind of like To Kill a Mockingbird with
Yeah.
Boo Radley, okay? Justin?
In more recent years, police officers.
There you go, yeah, well, definitely more recent years, yeah, very much so.
Jews back during the Holocaust.
There you go,
It's probably the most black and white example of a scapegoat.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, all these other
People
ones,
like were like,
like
just
stereotypes
everything
and
is
discrimination, but I feel like, you know, there's a reason why they're scapegoats, either to distract people
Did
from
you-
someone else or like.
That's exactly right, there's a reason there are scapegoats, it's to, you blame one group so that another group can get away with something, sometimes, right? We talked about that when we read Night a couple of years ago, you read Night, it's this year's juniors that did not read Night. Correct? Yeah, we talked about that, think about other groups of people between 1940, and actually what I was gonna say, did you know that there's a movement out there now that are blaming Jews again?
Yes.
I mean, like the last 3 years
No,
or
it's
like right
all-
now?
Like now in Texas, like in the United States.
remember in
Specifically
North
South.
Carolina, that actual Nazi rally?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's so sad, it's
Charlottesville.
like no
Yeah.
side are
Yeah.
helping the Jews because of on one hand, it's like Palestine, Palestine, screw Israel and all this stuff, but then at the other hand, like, they're literally being discriminated against so hard, like Jewish people are, and like all this other stuff, and it's just like, I feel so bad for them, because it's like, no one wants to help them, it feels like, no like big organization, there's like some people, but like,
And again, what I've heard recently, it's the same reason as during the Holocaust, in that they control the global economy somehow, or it's usually money related
I think
when it
it's
comes
hard
to Jewish
'cause
people.
It's like Judaism is obviously like a religion, but it's also like an ethnicity.
It is, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's why people can target them so specifically, because it's also a very small group
Yeah,
compared to like
right,
everybody else.
right, very much so. Okay, think back to, because this hasn't come up, I'll give you clues. Think about between 1945 and 2002.
Muslims?
Right?
oh, for sure.
Yeah, very, 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 very much so, right? Because of 9/11, right? What else are Muslims scapegoats for? Why else, are Muslims still scapegoats, or have people replaced Muslims as scapegoats in America specifically?
I mean, I feel like recently, like Asian Americans have been replaced by the Muslims because of the coronavirus.
Vice versa, have replaced, yeah.
I
So like
think-
the Muslim Americans now are like, phew, they're going after the Asian people now.
I don't
Is that what you mean?
Not like fully replaced, but like,
Good.
they're kinda like,
I was
drawn to
exaggerating.
shifting the blame.
I was
think
exaggerating.
Americans can like see a threat on their country, and they just wanna find someone to blame. So like, I think back when terrorism was a huge deal, they found Muslim Americans and Muslims in the Middle East, and they're like, we're gonna use that as an excuse to bomb the hell out of those countries.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because of foreign interests in oil, and just, it would backhandedly benefit the United States by using them, blaming them, being like, this is our reason.
Well, in the face of 9/11 was Osama bin Laden and all the people that were convicted of all those crimes after they were dead. They were brown, you know, Muslims, yeah.
I just think it's kind of a natural thing, cause when people, like, it's just like we were talking about in history class, third period. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor,
There you go.
you know, we put them in internment camps because we were scared.
Yeah.
Everyone was scared. And it's kind of the same thing with like 9/11. Everyone was terrified and they didn't know what to do. And they just kind of panicked and overreacted.
And it happens a lot. History's
time.
repeating itself
Yeah.
right now with
The
the Asians.
Yeah.
Nobody had brought up the Japanese during World War II. Very, very good point, yes.
I was gonna add on to Reagan's comment. I don't think that Muslims and Islam is necessarily the scapegoat anymore, but I think they're still very heavily discriminated against.
Yeah.
Like, I think as we find other groups to use as scapegoats, we just kind of like add them to the group of people that we're discriminating
And you
against.
have like the never forget mentality, and
Yeah,
even though obviously those people weren't directly responsible, it's because that face was used as like the enemy during that time. People are never gonna let that go, even though they had nothing to do with it. And
Is there ever any groups that have not been?
No. Not a single, I can't think of a single. I mean, if we're bringing up all this stuff in history, then I mean, gotta bring up all of it.
I think white people have done the majority of
I was gonna
marginalizing.
say white men.
This is
Like,
I think white men are very discriminated against today.
Yeah, I was gonna
Very
say
much
that,
so.
I was gonna say
Because
that.
everyone's always gonna hate on us, and if you do anything wrong, that's how they remember you. And you're gonna be called a racist for the rest of your life, everything like that. You get blamed for a lot of things, you get thrown under the bus, because you're a straight white Christian man.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
see that a
coming
lot.
with like the change of the times. I
Yes.
think people are gonna start to see that because, you know, again, you guys didn't do it, but years ago, it was bad. Like, we just saw a picture of a sign that said Japanese Americans not welcome here, keep
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
And that was like very open, people were not even ashamed of doing that.
She's
And I
pointing
think,
at the sign.
it's over there!
No,
Right. And I think it's just like that rubber band reaction effect where it's like, it was so bad, it's just kinda gonna slap you back in the face.
Yep.
And I think that's it's kinda like,
So now
what's
it-
happening right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And I think it's
it's almost like a shock because the majority white people in this classroom have never experienced oppression before, or even like a resistance from that.
And it's gonna be different when you go to college and you're are surrounded by people who are different from
We're
you.
in a conservative area, we're in a small town where it's like, we're seeing all these riots and they're like, white people are discriminating, white people are bad and this and that, it's like around here, like sure, we're not really exposed to multiple cultures, so we're just kind of to ourselves and then we're being blamed for the past and the past generations of white males.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
No, go ahead, Justin first, just keep talking, I'm gonna move my camera so they can look at
It's
you.
just,
and-
I think it's just one of those things where we're always gonna be there, and minorities are always gonna point the finger at someone because of what's happened in the past.
Yes.
Situations like
Yeah, I
that.
think you're probably right.
I don't think with the protests and stuff, they're trying to blame us for the past. I think they're trying to bring awareness, and I'm not saying that they went about it in the right way, because the violence was not good, obviously. But I think they're trying to bring awareness to the disproportionate number of, like, crimes against the minority that they are, or the disproportionate number of them that are in jail, or, you know,
That's like because of
etc.
systematic racism that was put in
Yeah.
place years ago by
But
white
has it-
people.
but has it been
Systematic
fixed?
It hasn't been
Yes.
fixed. Cause those regulations
Right.
and,
Oh.
zoning, like,
Yeah,
Or
speaking
not.
of, have you
Or
seen
not.
some on the news about this in the last week? Speaking of?
no.
Okay, so I believe it is, it's a suburb of Chicago, and I'm not gonna remember the name of the suburb of Chicago, but they are in essence beginning a process to pay reparations to African American people who have been discriminated against over the years because of zoning laws and lending laws, and it all has to do with housing. You guys have heard the term redlining?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly, like
know
it's-
exactly.
Yeah,
I know.
it's Evanston, Illinois, I believe. I just read an article in this in the paper last week, where there is a application process for African American people in Evanston, Illinois, if they can prove that they have had family live there since a certain time period, that they have been excluded from fair housing, so they can apply for what essentially is reparations, to give them money, because they've been discriminated against all these years. And I wanna say it's one of the first cases of this in the country, that a town is saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did this to you guys for so many years. You deserve some compensation for this.
Yeah, and it's a very common thing in like cities, especially like Chicago. And
Omaha
it
even.
just
Yeah.
perpetuates more problems, and that's the problems that we blame people for. Like, those areas are typically lower income
And
and
then
more crime heavy.
Creates generational
Yeah.
poverty,
Yeah.
because they're never allowed to own anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Cause
think
if you,
that's also now it's, I mean, that came from racism, but now it's just like a class thing. No matter who you are, it's so hard to like
Get to
Yeah.
the next
move a
class,
class
you
and things
And
like
that's the
that.
It
issue
gets
with
stuck.
capitalism.
Yeah, okay.
Ma'am,
We're not
You
going
can't
there.
move at all with communism. That's the whole point of it, is that you can't move.
Yeah.
and if you look in the history of things, how the divide has grown, I wanna say since the 80s, is that right? I don't know.
The middle class is shrinking.
Yes.
It's
Did
so
you
sad.
guys see those
It's
pictures, like when the stock market crash happened in 2008? Like after like that whole Robin Hood scandal thing with like,
My parents feel
GameStop, the whole stock market thing, and like people were so mad and like, I don't know, I feel like talking about like the systemic racism issues just kind of stopped for a day. We all focused on like the class issues that we have in America. And back in 2008, when that happened again with the stock market crash, there's like these pictures of like Wall Street members who were pointing down at the protesters and laughing while they were drinking, because like, you guys just lost all your money, you were so rich. Did you guys see those
That's
photos?
happened more than one
So
time.
hilarious.
That's happened more than one
It's so
time.
bad.
Yeah. The reason we're talking about this is because we're gonna read the Kite Runner, okay? And the Kite Runner will not take us very long, because once you get into this novel, you don't wanna put it down. I literally had some English 4 kids back in the day read it in just a couple days, kids that hated school. like hated reading, hated school, sat in Haley McWhorter, if you know her, remember her? Probably don't, that was my very, very first year. Sat in the library, read the book in 2 days. So did Louis, remember Louis Dieger? He was reading it while he was supposed to be lifting weights. I heard it, if you do Louis, that lifting weights was important to him, okay? So the Kite Runner, if you don't know anything about it, is, and this is one of the reasons why we are reading it, it's about an immigrant family, actually, and it is still valid today in so many ways because of the scapegoat issue, because of the fact that so many people want to come to our country to find a better life. And a lot of the reasons they want to emigrate from their own country, which means leave, is because of political situations where they are being targeted and it's not safe for them to live, okay? Who are the people that are wanting to come to the US right now? Right now.
In Honduras, we had like a hurricane there.
Yeah.
And it's like a huge rush, and it's bringing back up the issues of like the unaccompanied minors and the, like holding, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
Like those,
Yeah.
and the conditions for that, and people are like blaming the Biden administration, even though he's only been in office for like.
But he just
a
opened
bit.
us new ones, Megan.
I know, but
He
he's
also
not,
Called them, like, gave him a whole brand new name.
And
now
hasn't
you
done
guys
anything
just
to fix the
eating it
problem.
up.
It's
It's
only
just the
been-
same thing.
Okay,
I know.
so people are still coming to the country.
Oh,
Okay,
Megan.
right now, they're unaccompanied minors, and they're coming here because it might be unsafe, okay, to live in the country that they're living in. It might be because of some catastrophe that happened, some weather event that was catastrophic, okay? Right? What are the reasons people come here?
civil unrest, we said that, but yeah.
Well, yeah, we didn't say that, but civil unrest, Justin?
It's, the whole border security issue is just, it's a mess, cause either way, you're gonna hurt some people.
And either way, if you have a legitimate reason to get here or not, there are always going to be people who take advantage of those who are trying to leave their country and get to another one. Okay, have you seen anything in the news recently with car accidents,
Well, that was.
smuggling?
I just, I
Yeah.
saw something in the news where they tried to smuggle like 8 people in the back of an oil tanker and they died.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they
Yeah.
didn't-
It's so fast.
Yes.
It's so
There were,
fast.
I don't know if we talked about this in class, I talked about it with one group of my kids. 25 people in an expedition.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
talked.
talked.
Yeah.
I saw it,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Okay, so there's people that are making money off all of this, right?
I feel like that's
Why is it?
maybe one of the reasons why things aren't changing.
Are or aren't?
It's like there are all these people who like, I mean like really, you know, like there's this theory that like just like the really rich people that like run the government, not the people who are actually elected. So I feel like if people are making money, it's pretty much no, right? People are making all this money. There's people, and it's such a hard, I mean, you either take the chance of like dying while you're crossing over the border, or like illegally getting kidnapped, sex trafficked, all these things, or you have to wait over a year to leave the place that you're trying to leave. I
Either
did,
you
that was
die
one of my
crossing the
expense
border or you die in
speeches.
your home country.
And,
Yeah.
and like there's this
Literally.
woman who's trying to leave her country, and they make her stay in the country she's trying to leave for like a year, and her case just keeps getting either pushed back or denied, but then she's like, denied, but you're allowed to try again, which is like,
Yeah.
which doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense, cause
They
like,
make
you're
it
denied
like,
it.
if you
why?
go
Her
here-
money from her.
I hear people use argument, if you wanna come here, come legally, but that's
But like,
So
you
hard.
almost
it's
impossible.
literally impossible.
Years to get here.
So, back to our book, it's all part of this topic. Back to our book. Our author is,
He's snickering.
good for you for turning it around, good for you, what did you do?
What?
Tanner's not in here. We're all immigrants, correct? We're all immigrants. Our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, whatever, all came here for some reason, Does anybody know specifically why their parents left Europe to come here, or why your ancestors left Europe to come here? Do you know specifically why? What is it?
My grandmother lived in Germany, like she moved here when she was 16, well, like, they were really, really poor, the entire country was after World War I with all the reparations they had to pay, and so they didn't want her, because she was a girl, so they kicked her out, and all these things happened, she ended up moving here to try and get a better life.
Anybody have a specific
Well, it's
situation
not
like that
too
too?
specific, but, some great, whatever, he came from Ireland and he just got married to his third wife. And I wanted to
First
have
two wives died, I'm assuming.
That is quite
I
specific,
couldn't
Becca.
tell ya, I don't think they died. I
Okay.
think he just wanted a new wife.
Okay,
And so I think he
Okay.
just wanted a new life and
Street
just took his
Like
kids
new
and
wife.
his new wife to America. That's basically.
that's
My dad
probably
gets that.
pretty similar. Fred's dad came to America from Germany in 1955 because they had a relative up by Randolph, Nebraska, who were a husband and a wife. They couldn't have kids, they needed help on the farm. He came from a big family, they could live without him because Germany after World War II was also very poor. So he came over in this cargo ship, actually. He didn't come through Ellis Island, he's legal. He later became a citizen, but he came over in steerage of a cargo ship, you know, so to help people out here and to make it easier on his parents over there. And I'm guessing there's probably lots of stories like that. The story that we're gonna read has to do with an two different immigrant families actually, from Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is still in the news. If you would open in the paper pretty much once, twice a week, you will still see stories about the Taliban. You will still see stories about American soldiers being stationed in Afghanistan right now. Shannon Lee was over there somewhere, I don't know exactly where, but there's still Middle Eastern strife. Just like since biblical times, there's still Middle Eastern strife. Well, our two immigrant families came over in the 1980s after Russia invaded Afghanistan. And after Russia invaded Afghanistan, the Russians were difficult on the Afghani people. And after the Russian revolution, or not revolution, after the Russians took over Afghanistan, then the Taliban gained a foothold, and you've all heard about the Taliban and how they treated the people of Afghanistan. So our two families that are in our Kite Runner story, here's the thing, and I think this is still today, you see stories about this all the time. Were prominent families in Afghanistan, had professional jobs, were successful businessmen, were successful in the military, higher rank in the military, educated people that were professors, just high-class community, good people, came here, and what usually happens? Do they get their foothold in society that they had in where they left? No. And I don't know if we watched it in your class, but you guys have probably seen or read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas?
Oh, you're
Okay.
making her cry.
Yeah.
He was traumatized from that movie.
Remember the potato peeling guy?
Yeah.
He was a doctor, right? He was
I
a
watched that
doctor.
when I was 11 and I didn't even know what the Holocaust was. I was like, why is he dying?
He was a doctor, but he was a household servant to the commandant of that concentration camp, okay? So our story is written by a man who I pronounce his name Khaled Hassini. And he's about my age now. He's about born around the same time as me. And he's had several books that have gone on to become successful, but the Kite Runner was the book that made a name for him worldwide, not just in the United States. It's a controversial book in more than one way. I'll let you discover that as we read through it. But what I like about this book is the fact that we get to hear the history of oppression of a different group of people than we normally get to hear from in a first-person voice, okay? And we get to hear the history of, from 1970s on in Afghanistan, and we get to hear the tale of someone who literally was smuggled across at least one border, okay? It continues to be taught in schools. It is a heartbreaking story of not only Khaled Hosseini's fictionalized family, but we also get to peer into another family and their history, and we get to also learn about groups of immigrants that settle in one place. Okay, does that still happen today, where groups of immigrants settle in one place? What about Nebraska? Who has settled here? What groups do we have in Nebraska? Most recently,
Oh,
Somalians. There's a high Somali population in I think Lincoln and Omaha, I believe. You guys know the Hmong, is it Hmong, H-M-O-N-G? Is that how you pronounce it? The Hmong people? I remember a few years ago, Dakota Tegler and that whole group, there's a group of H-M-O-N-G people that I think work at Tyson. And you know, there's little pockets of immigrants, Czechs being one of them. You know, we know all the little towns in Nebraska that are Czech towns. We know all the little towns in Nebraska that were German towns. Still happening, but with different groups of people. So we get to learn the story of a modern group of people who have come over and have built a community, and they tend to flock together. I know Minnesota has a big, is it Afghani?
Minnesota, I think that's Somalia.
Somalia.
Because they had like a problem with, they didn't get the measles vaccines, they had measles outbreaks.
Because of their, based on their culture.
Yeah, because a lot of them were like first generation
Mhm.
from Somalia, so
Yeah.
they didn't have measles vaccination, so.
So there was an outbreak because of that. I know our story, once they get to the United States, they gather in Fremont, California. And I think there is still a big Afghani population in Fremont, California, which is Oakland, San Francisco area. Also in Virginia, there's I don't know where in Virginia, but there's a big Afghan. I researched this when I was teaching the story a couple of years ago and found out where the pockets of Afghani people are. You want to go where your people are, right? No matter what nationality you are. So anyway, we're going to start reading it on tomorrow. Reagan, you're gone tomorrow. Is anybody else gone tomorrow besides Reagan? And I guess I can ask you guys, I'm not going to give you a reading assignment today, but would you guys like to get your books today? Or would you like to wait till tomorrow? Might as well give them to you today. You do not have a reading assignment for tomorrow because I told the track kids I wouldn't do that to them, okay? But I can go ahead and I can give you the reading schedule. How's that? Okay. And I will let you know that I don't have enough hard copies of these books for everyone to get a hardback. So if a hardback is important to you, come on over. Grab them now.
I don't work much weekend, I don't work all graduating, because May 8th I have a test. And then we have graduation, and then we have, my cousin's graduation, she's graduating, so.
I'll work out.
What did you think it was about?
I thought it was gonna be about a little boy and like some kind of just like wholesome story.
It is.
Like he had like legit like kite and he was like with his grandfather. I thought it was gonna be kind of like Huckleberry Finn in a way, that kind of vibe.
We'll have to see if it is that kind of vibe. Let me get my copy out and I can put your reading schedule on the board. And it's gonna be the more aggressive reading schedule of the two that I have used over the years. Because we need to get them. I'm gonna stop this.